Greetings, fam. I want to talk about the Boule. Who are the Boule? Well, they were incorporated and founded May 15th, 1904 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is the first, they were the first black fraternity in America. And this was before the first black college fraternities, which was the Alpha Phi Alpha, which was incorporated and founded on December 4th, 1906. And then there were several more that came after that, and I'll go into that later in the video. The Boule is a black Greek secret society based on another secret society founded at Yale called Skull and Bones. The Boule's primary founder was Dr. Henry McKee Minton, who, along with doctors Eugene T. Henson, Edward Clarence Howard, Algernon Brashear Jackson, Robert Jones Abele, and Richard John Warwick, and they were all of Philadelphia. Now, according to W.E.B. Du Bois, and I believe he didn't like the French pronunciation of his name, so it was Du Bois, and he founded the New York chapter of the Boule. And I'm going to quote him here. Quote, he said, "The importance is to steal the black professional away from Garvey," and he was referring to Marcus Garvey, "because an Afrocentric organization that articulated and captured the black professional would give whites no safe haven in the black community." So the Boule, and that's end quote. So the Boule, in effect, was the remaking of the house Negro. And it was necessary to build a group of Negroes who had, and this is, speaking in the language of the time, in explanation for why this group was formed, Du Bois went on to say, to build a group of Negroes who had an investment in protecting the white system as produced by whites having stolen this land. Now, this is post-Reconstruction, so taking away the articulate Negro, now desiring to replace them with organized institutions to keep them away from self-improvement. Because this is what Marcus Garvey was promoting, and I'm going to go more into his cause in a minute. I've mentioned him in other videos, but I'm going to really give you some more background on exactly what he was attempting to do. However, he was not successful. So we find in this same period as the founding of the Boule that there was also the founding of 4 black male fraternities. And that was, as I stated before, the Alpha Phi Kappa, but then there was also the Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, and Phi Beta Sigma. And then there were 4 black female fraternities, which were the Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, and Sigma Gamma Rho. And these were college-based fraternities and sororities. And combined, there are 9 historically black Greek letter organizations, and the acronym for that is BGLOs, that make up the National Pan-Hellenic Council. Now, collectively, these organizations are referred to as the Divine Nine. And also, remember, this was in the 1900s, so this was also during the time of the founding of the NAACP and the Urban League. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois, he also said that he was one of the strongest opponents of Garvey. Let's start there. And he was an instrumental tool in stopping one of the strongest grassroots movements in the century. Because Garvey's plan, what was it? His plan was to take as many Africans from America and start a settlement in the nation of Liberia, and then help the new nation produce and control their own rubber crops and other industries and national resources. According to Brother Garvey, and I quote, "If the oil of Africa is good enough for Rockefeller's interests, if the iron is good enough for the Carnegie Trust, then these minerals are good for us also." Remember, these rich oil barons and these elite families of the bloodlines, they went to Africa and got their resources. They stole the oil, they stole the diamonds and all the minerals, and they brought them back to America for their own self-interests. Now, And he was saying, and I want to continue with the quote of Garvey, he said, why should we allow Wall Street and the capitalist groups of America and other countries to exploit our country when they refuse to give us a fair chance? And in the countries of our adoption. So, and just to finish, wind up the quote, he said, why should not Africa give to the world its black Rockefeller, Rothschilds, and Henry Ford? So this man was a truther way back in the age, and I've said this before, this was before internet, television, and radio, and he still managed to get 1 million followers. Those of you who are wondering why you don't have many followers, maybe because you're not saying anything. We have to speak up. There are so many people who are seeking, dying for knowledge, and they can't find it anywhere because the schools are not giving it to them. The schools are not going to tell you the truth about Black history. Okay. Anywhere there are prominent professional Blacks, chances are they're in the Boule. And that's a quote from the late great brother Steve Coakley. And as a side note, some of you know about the time that they had hospitalized me and they kept me prisoner in the hospital. And ever since I came out, they said I had TB. I didn't have it. But they kept me there and they filled me with all types of drugs and injections and things. And ever since that particular visit, I have developed all sorts of chronic illnesses. Well, Brother Coakley, when he was admitted to the hospital, he said, they're going to kill me in here because he spoke the truth. And sure enough, he never left the hospital. He died there. Okay, several years ago, Harold Doley, the first Black to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, he bought a 35-room mansion, which was originally built by Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first Black self-made female millionaire in America. And she had amassed a fortune from her hair care products and beauty schools. She's most famous, well known for the straightening comb, which was able to, brainwash and just absolutely destroy Black pride within the Black community, because during that time, once that invention came out, everybody had their hair, we used to call it fried, dyed, and laid to the side. Thank you, Miss Walker, for that. While building the 20,000 square foot house in Irvington, New York, Miss Walker created a commotion because the white neighbors who were surrounding, this was a very exclusive area, and it was in 1917. So we still weren't quite accepted everywhere. And they said, oh, it's impossible. No woman of her race could afford such a place. Excuse me. But she could, and she did. And as a result, the house still stands, and it's now owned by this brother who has a seat on the stock exchange. Now, Dr. Harold Delaney, he's the chairman of surgery at Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx, and he's also the fleet commander of a yacht club, which is made up of a dozen Black doctors and lawyers. And they call themselves the Rainbow Club, and they sail up and down the East Coast. And it's another secret society because you can't just walk up in there. Okay, for women, there are sororities like, again, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and clubs like the Lynx and the Smart Set. For men, there is the Omega Psi-Phi on the historically Black campuses, which claim alumni from Vernon Jordan to former Governor L. Douglas Wilder of Virginia. And there are also clubs like the Guardsmen and the Boule, which is the topic of today's video. For children, there is Jack and Jill, a network of recreational groups that cultivate African American roots in largely white suburbs. But again, don't rush to send your resume to any of these organizations because they accept members only by invitation. Now, the sheer unfamiliarity and opulence of much of this terrain raises a question. Are these groups gatekeepers to making it as a Black professional or a politician? Do they play a heretofore overlooked but vital role in how blacks advance socially and professionally? And do they constitute an old boy and old girl network for African Americans? Well, according to Barbara Dixon Simpkins, and she made this statement publicly, and she's also the national president of the Lynx Club, which is based in Washington. And I quote, she said, most of our members have already reached the pinnacle of success. Among them are the representatives Sheila Jackson Lee and Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas, Marion Wright Edelman, the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, Dr. Jonetta Cole, president of Spelman College, Sharon Pratt Kelly, the former mayor of the District of Columbia, Hazel O'Leary, the energy secretary, and then she goes on to say, networking, however, does take place. Then you have Dr. Joan Adams, an obstetrician and gynecologist who practices in Bronxville, New York, and she lives in Scarsdale, both of which are two of Westchester's wealthiest communities. And she belongs to the Lynx and Delta Sigma Theta, and her children, Peter 10 and Annie 17, are in Jack and Jill. Her husband, Peter Adams, a lawyer, is president of the Phi Beta Sigma, which is one of the four historically black fraternities. So what I'm trying to do is bring to you a clear understanding of who exactly the black Boulé are. But in order for you to gain that, you first have to understand the terms that I'm going to lay out here. Field Negro and House Negro, and then also the term Uncle Tom. Now, the first two terms were coined because although both were slaves during slavery times, one held himself above the other. The House Negro, obviously, in most cases were typically half white or maybe even the offspring of the plantation owner, had better living conditions and better food than the field Negroes. So the field niggers basically kept it real and endured torturous days in the field, and they ate pig scraps for dinner. And that was if they were lucky. And this is why some of you Negroes still enjoy chitlins and hog maw and all that pork. Because, historically, this is what we ate. And I can't front. Every now and then, yes, I do have a pork chop. I will eat some pork. There's parts of the pig, that I'll eat if they cook it right. Pig feet, you name it. And I'm not promoting this because it's really not good for you. And that's why some of us can't lose no damn weight. But that's a whole nother video. Okay, so house Negroes, they spent their days and nights kissing the behind of the plantation owner. And not all of the house Negroes, they had a superiority complex either. But most of them did. They were, given the mindset that they were better when actually they weren't, but because they were in the house, they assumed that that was the case. But it was the plan from the beginning to pit black slave against a black slave in order to maintain white supremacy. Now you have to understand, and this is the roots of Boulé, because basically we have these house Negroes on their yachts and other toys, and they're bringing together other wealthy blacks, but they're excluding those blacks who they feel are not on their level, and they're not looking to help them get on their level. So where there is bickering, there's no unity. Where there is class levels, there can be no unity. And the white slave master knew this, and he controlled us with it. And if this sounds familiar, it goes back to what I told you in another video, the Willie Lynch syndrome. So it was a psychological warfare that was waged against blacks ever since the beginning of slavery. Now, an Uncle Tom is a person who will do anything to stay in good standing with the master, including betray his own people. And today we call it cooning, but it goes even deeper than that. The Uncle Tom, he's not necessarily light skinned, by the way. The Uncle Toms can be any color of the rainbow, and it can be male or female. It's just that black person who is willing to do anything to not be considered as lowly as the rest of us. And now keep in mind, even though we're all in the same boat, these are people who are trying to jump the ship for a better quality of life. And today we call them sellouts. So what could the Boule offer America's blacks in the early 20th century? Well, joining an exclusive secret society offered advancement and perks to select blacks in return for loyalty to its objectives. The Boule recruited top blacks in American society into its ranks. Today, 5,000 plus archons, which are male Boule members, and their wives, arquesses, with 112 chapters, they make up the wealthiest group of black men and women on the planet. However, what most people don't know is archon means demon. And it's the type of demon that likes to be hidden. And so you may say, well, who does the Boule really serve? They serve the satanic, mostly white, global elite. As long as the black member conforms to the rules, the riches will be in abundance. But if not, then the hatchet definitely comes down on their heads. And blackmail is a big part of the deal. So the remaking of the House Negro was necessary to institute a group of blacks who had a vested interest in protecting the elite white system. And it was about selling out brothers and sisters for power and money. The majority of black lawyers, doctors, engineers, and accountants are members of the secret society to this very day. And in a modern sense, you have to consider all venues in which black people excel in the United States. So you've got this brainwashed black person who's quick to say, well, everything they have is due to hard work and good education. But it's not. It's due to a successful network of sellouts. And this brings me back, to the objectives here. You see, when you have a web of black people that are essentially Uncle Toms, well, obviously they're willing to go through the white elite in order to grab whatever spoils they can get out of the game. And they have the mindset that they are special and chosen, when in reality all they are sellouts. And what do they sell? Garbage on all fronts, propaganda. These are the people, think back, to get a clear understanding of who they are. These are the same people who are your successful black politicians that really don't care about the black communities, the black businessmen who, on the other hand, will not even support a black business, the black actors that portray stereotypes and cross-dressers, and the black actresses that portray whores, and the black doctors that prescribe big buck pharmaceuticals. And then you have the black lawyers that lie in order to make a living. These people are ambitious, and that's not a good quality in the eyes of the Most High. It is utterly detestable, the bottom of the barrel. And these lowly swine masquerade as the black community when they're not. So you might be saying, well, how did they get into such an elite clique? And why do a lot of black people still collectively act in a stereotypical manner? Well, first off, you don't even have to be from a frat or a sorority. That is just one branch of the network. These people do some despicable and ungodly acts in secret to seal the deal. And that's how they prove that they are in it for the long haul. The knowledge of their nasty deeds is blackmail that's used to keep them in check. And that's why you see so many black actors, actresses, singers looking butch or fruity, because they swing both ways, and they are shrewd and ruthless. Now, in the entertainment industry, these Boulé members only produce material that degrades black people, their own. They undermine the black community from within like a cancer. And this causes the young and impressionable to act in a predictable way, what is well known as a herd mentality. And this makes them easy to control because the herd has to be led. And it's usually one shepherd, at a time that will shift the herd either, one way or the other. And because of the herd mentality, it's going to follow because that's what it does. And this is why, on some levels, I have a problem with the word followers. We used to be leaders. Now we're followers. Okay, most black people are none the wiser of the real agenda that's behind all of this. And so they create a blueprint and approximate where they would like to conduct their matters of business. This is the Boulé, and this is part of the real agenda behind the whole creation of this. They use media and highly paid parrots to speak and repeat the propaganda and lies to you already attentive and gullible lost tribe Negroes. It seems that the majority of American people are being easily held in a cage of guilt, grief, and self-absorption. They want to point fingers at those who speak out against the dangerous game that is being played now with the collective mind. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such a time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. Point in fact, on July 10th, 2015, the Confederate flag was removed from the Columbia, South Carolina Capitol. Now, if Americans paid attention to the many parties that were given during this time, then you will have witnessed that many of the attendees were Boule Society members. All things that we see and perceive are electric stimulus and light that transmits information that we can literally pay attention to. And then there are, of course, those things that we don't pay attention to. And this brings me back to the removal of the Confederate flag. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put it, is less dangerous, the removal of the Confederate flag is less dangerous to the black race than what the American flag has done. And what we're experiencing today, fam, is the progressive weakening and demise of many key processes associated with globalization, mostly of a haphazard, horizontal, cross-border, and even chaotic nature, and their rebirth in new formats, which is suitably retooled to support world government goals, processes, and institutions that strengthen, grow, and consolidate. So no doubt that Big Brother is definitely here, and he means to stay. The most dramatic effect of this transition we are undergoing is the planned end-run eroding of all sovereign nation states. In its place, we will have world governmental institutions, and this is taking place through a complex, creeping, gradual, crisis-filled, violent process. And it's illegally erecting, binding, mandatory, multi- and supranational bureaucratic entities. However, collectivism, social memory complexes, and I'm going to tell you what that is, will be the next to kill religion. And how do they plan to do it? By replacing it with the New World religion and philosophy. Now, collectivism is a term used to describe any moral, political, or social outlook which stresses human interdependence and the importance of a collective. And this is why all these new lifestyle agendas and so forth are being pushed down our throats. And they hide behind the fact that it's civil rights, but it's not civil rights, because civil rights were instituted because the people had to have something to ensure that they could live peaceably in the skin that they were in. Having no control over their just being born. We were tormented and prosecuted and killed simply based on the color of our skin. Okay, and I'm not going to go more into that now. I'll do another video deeper into, why civil rights is not the same thing as gay rights or LBGT rights and all of that. Okay, there are some of those and some of you who define yourselves by your country of origin. And there are some who predict their future will bring us to a time where the entire world will function with a beehive mentality. And the key in, the whole elitist goal is the youth and college students. These are the minds which are being shaped, which is fading out that of the minds of those of us who are the baby boomers and Generation X. So all of these agendas that are being promoted now, they're working on pulling in the youth. And this is why they're encouraging all this stuff within the schools and the colleges and even from kindergarten. Some of you may recall a video I did showing you how they're teaching children as young as 5 and 6 about, My Two Daddies. This is required reading in some schools. All of this is brought about by the hidden hand behind the scene that implements gradual cultural change and political change. But political change, in turn, is tied to the democratic system that puts politicians in power for several years at a time. And when something goes really wrong, then drastic actions can be taken. So we have been conditioned by the implementation of drastic measures that were taken and various traumas which were allowed to happen in order to change cultural behavior. And this is from the assassination of the Kennedys to Dr. Martin Luther King. The American people were being told that change was on the way and that the Civil War, which they called the soft Civil War, has made everything darker before the dawn of the New Deal, which is the New World Order. And what has been the theme, think about this, of the last few presidential platforms? Change. They have been brainwashing people with this theme, change. Let's make America great again. Because right now it's not great. This is the theme, and this is what you are being indoctrinated to accept. That changes are coming for sure, and you need to get on board because this is what we need to make it great. That doesn't make it right. The puppet masters have been successful since 9/11, but in keeping Americans transfixed so that they can continue to erode civil rights and open a vital dialogue for status, authoritarian propaganda, and eventually a newly planned state of socialism. The coming world government will be multi-centered along the lines of what is now known as the New Dawn experiment, and it's a supranationalist movement called the European Union. Now, after the removal of the Confederate flag, the world has moved even further into economic chaos and eugenics. And during these times, it's easy to see how a resurgence and repackaging of eugenics could come about. In the case of global warming, for example, and economic sustainability, we hear these questions which are asked by proponents. Do you have more than 2 children? Is your carbon footprint putting a strain on the environment? Your carbon footprint, by the way, is your mark on Earth, and it's analyzed and measured and taxed, and all the things you buy and sell will be monitored for your carbon footprint. So if we reduce all living things to carbon, we reduce them to 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. 666, which is the number of man. The number is even shown to be that of the man in Taoism. The number of man's society is also 6. The number of the world and the demiurge is 6. As we break down the blood in the genome to its purest form, we determine that it is 666, your carbon footprint, and it is your indelible mark in the beast system that controls and limits your resource consumption. Accepting the mark is accepting that you are a burden on the New World System. And I told you guys before, and this is what I tell you youngins, is that by being out there clowning and acting up, there are those within the elite who are looking at your behavior and they are saying, you know what, they need to be removed. You know, we need to make America great again. And so this behavior, all that gang banging and you know, you've got people that walk up and down the street smoking their drugs and so forth. You know, the elite don't want this. They want you out of here. They don't want you around their children. And by making a people dependent on the government, they can then enforce control over the people. And it's just like in slavery times. You know, all of this is connected back to the Boulé, because you had the certain class of Africans who helped load the ship. They helped make sure you got on the ship, the slave ship. They didn't get on it, but they made sure you did. Okay, accepting the mark, like I said, is accepting that you're a burden. And you have to be monitored. And you have to also curb your resource consumption. Because what's the other fear of the elite? Is that these burdensome menaces to society are using up valuable resources that take away from the elite. So no one is going to be able to buy or sell or trade unless the mark is reviewed and a record is somehow stored on a subdermal chip. Now, the Obama Affordable Health Care Act helped establish a national, and Obama's a longtime Boulé. However, it helped establish a national medical device registry. So if the mark of the beast was only a microchip implanted in you for the tracking, for the purpose of tracking you, why does the FBI and the CIA need DNA databases? Why are fingerprints still being used in criminal cases? Why are biometrics far more effective in proving identity? Well, the chip may be part of the equation, but it is not all of the equation. And I just want to quote Revelation 13:16. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. His number is 666. The themes of blood sacrifice have been at the forefront of the entire war on terror. The religious themes are loaded with blood, ritual, genealogy, and the final slaying of those that are wicked. These themes have been mixed with the political rhetoric and is used as a weapon and a trigger for the fanatical arms of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Resources are important. In fact, I think they're even more important than money. In the New World Order, a new form of slavery will indeed arise. And through the ongoing massive transfer of wealth, extreme destructive capitalism will collapse national and regional economies, rebuilding and reformatting them into an international slave labor gulag-like entity. Remember, today's woes are not with the real world of national economies, which are for the most part intact, but with the fake virtual world of finance, banks, derivatives, junk bonds, hedge funds, and the like. The darkest financial moments before the dawn will trigger more social upheaval and rebellion, which can then be broken up and fragmented with false flag terror threats. This has always been a wild card to be used if the elite needs to jumpstart further crises leading to world government. So new events of this sort will no doubt be something huge that's actually even bigger than 9/11. It's coming. The killing of 9 black church members in Charleston, South Carolina, simply served to justify further global upheaval, wars, invasions, and genocide. A nuclear weapon over a major city that could be blamed on on the global power elite, whoever their favorite enemy is at the time, or a combination of their favorite enemies: Muslim fundamentalists, patriot movements, a specific state, etc. This time it was the killing of 9 blacks, which had a necessary psychological impact. Now, the Boulé, they are formed, remember, out of the white supremacist groups. So if you look into the overall picture of what's happening with whites killing blacks today, in this day and age, you've still got these white supremacist groups and these people who feel superior to black people. The fact that they are able to do this should tell you that somewhere it is being allowed. How can someone, not that they should not be allowed in a black neighborhood, but how can they just freely come into the hood and do this? So it's all part of that strategical, psychological warfare that continues to be worked on blacks, and it's on the poor blacks. It's on those of you who keep your headphones on 24 hours a day. It's on the ignorant blacks. And I'm not saying that offensively, because just because you're ignorant doesn't mean you can't get smart. But you've got to want to be smart. The members of the Boule, they pose as civil rights activists on the surface. So every time something goes down, black kid shot by police, church shootings, all this, then they come out of the woodwork. But in truth, the elite members, these people are operating for personal gain. They're not on your side. The Boule works in concert with the masters in maintaining the grip of Illuminati supremacy on their people. They're just another arm of the secret societies that recruit, indoctrinate, and work for the dark forces. And their perks galore, power and notoriety, all lying in wait for anyone whose soul is easily compromised. So what I'm saying here is that, and this is something for you to think on and to dwell on, in the Greek system, the Boule was the lower house of parliament. They were charged with organizing the affairs of the city for the king. Let that sink in, fam. This is an ancient story. The New World Order is actually the Old World Order. The elite blacks of the Boule are controlling their own people for a slice of the elite pie. And just like other secret societies, the Boule also encourages deviant rituals in order to solidify their membership. And these perversions are then cataloged and stored on record, so that later, if they need them, these rituals may be used as bargaining tools in the ultimate game. And that's where the selling of one's soul comes in. I have told you in other videos that if you are willing to do anything, then there are people who are willing to hold you to that promise. Because what is the ultimate game? It's the capturing of human souls. And the enemy, although he may appear to have a white face, he also has a black face, a red face, a yellow face, etc. And it goes even deeper than that. And I'm going to just repeat this last part. These perversions that these people do in order to solidify their membership, later, if need be, these rituals, because they're cataloged and stored on record, they're used as bargaining tools in the ultimate game. And what is the ultimate game? It is the capturing of human souls. The enemy may appear to have a white face, but he also has a black face, a red face, a yellow face, etc. And it goes even deeper than that. I'm gonna end the lesson here. People, don't be so quick to just jump up and sign up for stuff and accept things that are offered your way. Use wise judgment. I cannot reiterate how much things are happening at a fast pace, faster than many of you realize. This is the time to be alert, people. The enemy, it attacks the camp while they're asleep. So if you got to stay high all day, every day, if you have no goals and no aspirations and you're not storing up for the times to come, you got to get your house in order, people. Get non-perishable items to keep so that when the times get rough, you and your family can eat. I'm going to end with prayer. Lord, thank you for the message. Thank you for the hearer of the word. Lord, thank you for the ability to do the video. I hope, Lord, that it has blessed someone and that someone is able to grasp even a portion of what has been said. Lord, I thank you for my assignment. I thank you for the subscribers. I thank you for those who stop by. Lord, keep me focused and keep me protected, Lord, so that I may complete my assignment as it is pleasing to your will, Lord. I thank you and I bless you. In the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.